been a large numbers of very brutal murders that have been committed by those involved in organized crime just over the period of the last 2 years. Certainly not a week goes by that somewhere in the United States an individual is not killed, murdered in some kind of a gangland battle, or a witness is garroted and killed. I don't know if you remember Mr. Squilanti, who was here before this committee.
I remember very well.
He was involved in the garbage. Well, our information is that he was taken up into Connecticut and chopped up into little bits and then burned, and that's why they never been able to find him. This is going on, Senator.
Robert Kennedy put the FBI into the fight against organized crime. They were not involved against organized crime until Robert Kennedy put in. And beginning with that, we have been now for more than 20 years very successful, much more than we had been in 40 years before that.
He wanted it done. I mean, it should have been done. There was no investigation of them. Hoover didn't want his agents corrupted, and Hoover also didn't mind going to the racetrack and sitting with them, which he did.
Probably the most interesting part of my career was in 1960 when, for the first time in 30 years, there was an insurrection in the Mafia, when the Gallo brothers went against Mr. Profaci, and we had the Gallo-Profaci War. 13 dead and more than 20 wounded in a 2-year period. That was the beginning of the end of the control for the old-timers, because the young men were rebelling. They understood that the leaders got all the money and the young men took all the risks and went to jail.
Guys like Joey Gallo couldn't wait, and they tried to shoot their way into it, and that didn't work either, So it was a very interesting, weird period and very instructive for a young kid in New York. But I think it was the last period of real power of the mob.
A gangster is a gangster for a very good reason. He wants everything for himself, and he doesn't want to work for what he's got. Does not want to work. The Gallos used to get up in the morning, in the morning, 11, 12 o'clock, get all dressed in their best clothes, come out onto the street, President Street, and sit down in beach chairs and just sit there.
Changes were occurring. Scalise and Anastasia were selling memberships in the mob, and second and third generation Americans were joining the family. And these were people who grew up with the values of their contemporaries. They were no longer interested in honor and kinship and respect. They were interested in money and power. And when the bonds that tie them together are no longer of the village kinship type, but they're financial, they're much easier to break.
Joey Gallo and his two brothers, Larry and Albert, were young men, and they understood way back then, 1960, 30 years ago, they understood what I'm telling you, that the big bosses got all the money and we did all the dirty work. And they were not very happy with Giuseppe Profaci, and they wanted to start a revolution. The plan, I heard the plan being talked about by Joey Gallo and his father. He said, "Facciamo come Fidel la barba." The way Castro took over Cuba with a revolution, that's the way we are going to take over the Profaci gang.
The wars between mafia elements are not unlike wars between larger nations. They involve land, territory. They involve commodities, interests in certain... the war in the Persian Gulf is about oil. It could be about drugs. It doesn't make any difference. It's on something that's profitable, something that provides a value. Something of value is at stake.
The first thing they did was they kidnapped 5 of Profaci's, his brother-in-law and close friends, and they were going to hold them until he agreed to give them a better understanding. They were told, release the people you have kidnapped and we will talk. Joey Gallo said, no. We got to take one guy and we got to kill him, and we send them the dead body. When they know we mean business, then we talk. Larry, his brother, slapped him across the face and said, go to California. If you're here, they know you're crazy Joey, they won't even talk.
When I was a kid, I knew him. And he hung around. There was a pool room on Church Avenue called the Ace Pool Room. I'll never forget this place. So we'd go down there once in a while. Gallo's family owned a luncheonette right next door, so he was there a lot. And he was then known, nobody ever called him Crazy Joe. This was invented by screenwriters or tabloid newspaper men or something. He was called Joe the Blonde. That's what everybody called him, Joe the Blonde, when he was like 18, 19. And at the time, it was a case of life imitating art, because he wanted desperately to be Richard Widmark out of the movie Kiss of Death. Richard Widmark played a guy named Tommy Udo who wore black shirts and white ties and kicked an old lady down the stairs, and Joey thought that was the greatest.
It was an active mind, twisted. Oh yeah, intelligent, tremendous energy, and completely nuts. And he would call the newspaper I worked on, and they would call him Joe Gallo, and he would call to say that you left out the crazy. He loved to read Crazy Joe Gallo, Crazy Joe. He loved it.
So Joey went out, and they talked, and they were supposed to settle. But Profaci double-crossed them. He started shooting at them, and that's how the gang war began. And it went for 2 years until Joe Profaci died. Then a younger man, Joe Colombo, became the leader, and he says, I will treat the young men better, I'll spread the money around, and that was how the war ended.
I think it's a case of taking a fictional role and becoming the role in a way. He could have gone anywhere, but I think that movie changed his life.
You know anything about a gang war? Are you trying to protect yourself?
Dave, what kind of gang war? There's no gangs, there's no wars, there's nothing.
What about the guns?
That rifle's great. We go hunting. I belong to a hunting lodge. We all go hunting for deer. You go hunting too, don't you?
The police didn't think that those guns were from hunting. In fact, they quoted you as saying that you were trying to protect yourself.
Well, the police were misquoting somebody, because nobody told the police that.
Every time during the gang war, 3 o'clock in the morning, someone was shot, we would have to get out of bed, go round up everybody, and so on. And one night, we had rounded up Joey Gallo and all the others, bring them in, and so on and so forth. And one night, I said to Joey Gallo, you know, Joey, some night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to get out of bed, and we'll go look at the dead body. It's going to be you. And he was not making fun. He says, you're probably right. But, you know, you can't live forever. I know what business I'm in, and there's risks in it. You're right. Someday it's going to be me. All right. I think I helped keep Joey Gallo alive because we caught him and we sent him to prison. So he was there for 8 years.
I did see him also after he got out of jail, and I think jail certainly gave him the opportunity to read a lot of these books. I'm not certain that he understood all those books. I think he would be more comfortable with Marcus Aurelius than with Joyce.
When he came out of prison, he could discuss philosophically Camus and Sartre and other well-known writers. But I don't think anyone should really believe that his heart was into anything else than the business he had grown up in and the business where he wanted to rise to the top. He did not want to be an intellectual.
When he went to jail in Attica, which was a state prison, New York State, you had no recourse but to be very good in your relations with blacks, because that's all there really were in the prison. That's why Gallo, he did state time, which was strange, and he met a lot of blacks there. He had he liked that movie, Pushing the Woman Down, but he had a terrific grandmother himself in that field. She sat at the kitchen table in my time, and her grandson, Larry, who was Joey Gallo's brother, was out for the day shooting people. And detectives arrived at the house and said, Mama, that was the grandmother, they called her Mama, could we talk to you? And she said, yes. What's the matter? So they said, Mama, something bad happened She said, oh? They said, yes, this Abbott Tamarco was shot, a man who opposed her grandson. She said, oh, that's too bad. This Abbott Tamarco, is he alive or is he dead? So the policeman said, he just is barely alive, Mama. He'll make it. Where is Larry? That's the grandson who did the shooting. And she said, I don't know. We'll see when he comes back. So they left and said, please tell Larry we're looking for him. Later, Larry walked into the apartment, and she looks at him, and he's strutting around Larry. And she says, Larry, they were here about Abbott Tamarco. He's still alive. She says, Larry, what's the matter? You can shoot straight.
When he was going to be released from prison, I knew him well. And I said to friends of mine and some people in the media, I said, in 2 years, he'll be dead. Remember, he only lasted 1 year. Why? He got back. Well, I've been away. They owe me a lot of money. Joe Colombo sent him a $1,000 gift to help him get his... No, send it back. I want $100,000.
Joe Colombo, another family, looked to use publicity as a way of repelling law enforcement's attention on Cosa Nostra at the time. It was a time when the book The Godfather came out, when people's attention was focused on it, and he was going to do something about it. And he used the notion of anti-Italian bias as a way of achieving his goals.
There's a conspiracy in this country against every Italian American. We've been saying this, we'll continue to say it, and it's only till it touches them. Now I'll go a little further. Many of the other minority groups are starting to feel the same. And when they get through with us, they have to go on to the next body of people. And this is where the public should wake up, and this is where the public should start demanding some of these things be brought out to light.
And it had the exact opposite effect. He was viewed as by the public in large measure as a hood who was doing exactly what he was doing, and somebody who ought to be indicted and convicted and put in prison. It brought a lot of law enforcement and media attention on him. There was a crackdown on the mob and its illegal activities, and the result was he, like so many other people within the mob, were viewed as a liability rather than an asset.
I have a friend in New York named Fritz Yanni, Francisco Yanni. He invited me. He said, let's go down to Columbus Circle. I said, no, I don't want to be in the middle of that crowd. There's too many there who don't like me. You know, I'm a brave man, but I'm not stupid. I don't think I want to be in the crowd. So he said, all right, we'll go a block away to the New York Athletic Club. I'm a member. We'll have lunch. And we'll hear the music. And I say, a block away is okay. We just walked into the second floor dining room at the New York Athletic Club. We were seated, and when the waiter came over, he says, hey, they just shot Joe Colombo. Where? He said, right down the block, Columbus Circle. Who did it? He said, a black man. So as soon as I heard it's a black man, I said, if it was a black man, Joey Gallo was behind it.